Good afternoon. You're hereby notified that a workshop meeting of the Palatka City Commission is called to be held on Thursday, March 9th, 2017 at the regular meeting place of the Palatka City Commission, Palatka City Hall, 201 North 2nd Street, Palatka, Florida, to commence at 5 p.m. The purpose of the workshop is to take input and discuss the City of Palatka's Internet Cafe regulations found in Section 94-209 and Appendix A of the Palatka Municipal Code. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. We'll have a roll call, please.
Mayor Hill.
Here.
Vice Mayor Brown.
Present.
Commissioner Borum.
Present.
Commissioner Campbell.
Present.
And Commissioner Williams on the board.
She's en route.
En route.
We're going to go ahead without delay. We're a couple minutes behind. We're going to go ahead and start the workshop. And as you guys are familiar, we've introduced some prospective changes to regulation of internet cafes. But we wanted to have this workshop so that we could have a positive dialogue. Since we don't have many people in the audience today, what I will ask is anybody who intends to speak, go ahead and fill out one of the yellow speaker cards in the back. And we're going to kind of do this informally as opposed to going through, because we've only got a few people. We'll get this so everyone gets a true education on what the statutes say, where we are as far as what our regulations are within the city. We'll get a legal perspective from the police department. We'll also have the planning department talk as well. And then we'll have anyone else who wants to kind of give any input or talk. We'll have you come up to the podium, give your information, and just make sure you fill out a speaker card and have that present. And so we'll go ahead and start out. I'll have Don Holmes go ahead and give us the legal perspective.
The subject is now called essentially electronic or family game establishment. In the old days, it was referred to as internet cafes. That terminology is no longer, appropriate, because technically internet cafes are all banned now, as they used to exist. In Palatka, we're actually governed by two different statutes or ordinances. The first is the Florida statute, which is Chapter 546.10, and then we have our own ordinance that we've passed. The definitions are at Section 94-2, and then a lot of the guts of the ordinance are at 94-209. I won't try to provide an entire overview, but what I will try to do is emphasize a couple of things. A key that the legislature attempted to address and insert into the statute, which takes precedence over our ordinance. In other words, no matter what we put in our ordinance, the statute is going to control. And the two key elements of the statute are that, one, the games in an electronic gaming establishment cannot be games of chance. They are supposed to be games of skill. And two, you can't have cash or any kind of cash equivalent as a prize. Three, whatever you do have as a prize is limited to $5.25 in value per play, and a play includes any additional games that you win by winning points in the first game. That's all one play, and for all of that, your maximum prize is $5.25 per game, and a total of 100 times that, $525 total. So there's no, it isn't condoned that you trade back in a token for money. You can't get a prize and trade the prize back in for money. You can't essentially win money out of the in this process. If you do, then it's violating the statute. So while we can talk about hours of operation and locations, and we are talking about locations because our code does have some locational restrictions, and I'm sure the planning director is going to talk about those, and he's made a chart that I think all of you have gotten that kind of highlight the restrictions that are in our code compared to those that are in surrounding codes as far as the distances from churches and schools and so forth. What I wanted to emphasize was that we don't have the power to allow the winning of cash in the gaming establishments. We don't have the power to take the cap off of the amount of prizes that can be awarded. And if the statute is enforced, and we don't have the power not to enforce the statute, then you're going to have establishments maximum that allow for a maximum prize of $5.25 per game, and that prize is going to have to be in the form of some form of toy or prize, as the statute states, and you can't get more than $525 worth of that, those toys, not cash equivalent, and only that if you play 100 games. Just to give you a real quick statement as to what the statute says merchandise can't be. The statute says merchandise means non-cash prizes which are maintained on the premises by the operator of the amusement game or machine, including toys and novelties. The term does not include a cash equivalent, a gift card or certificate, an alcoholic beverage, a tobacco product, a card, coupon, point, slug, token, or similar device that can be used to activate an amusement game or machine, a coupon or a point that has redemption value greater than the maximum value of $5.25, any prize or other item if the exchange or conversion to cash or a cash equivalent is facilitated or permitted by the owner or operator of the game or machine. It isn't even arguable that you can't in any way under this process end up with cash for play. So so our code, essentially our ordinance, we can add to and we can implement such things as locational restrictions, distances from schools, churches, etc. We can talk about whether food is served on the premises or alcohol or whatever, but we can't change that basic fact that I've just talked about. So with that, I'll stop and I'll be available to answer any questions that you might have as we go along.
Anybody have any questions? We'll also take questions from the audience. Do you have any?
I would like, you could go in if you had a pinball parlor and play pinball. One of those things, you wouldn't win anything, you just go in there for the fun of it.
I'm not even sure that'd be called an electronic game, but yeah, that's theoretically a game of skill. And if you didn't win anything up to $5, over $5.25, yeah, I assume you could. I think you could have those, even though I don't even think that is even probably not even defined as a, well.
I was just curious what they would call games of skill. Because
It's, well, it's got a definition.
Mr. Mayor, if I could?
Yes, sir.
Pro Planning Director, just to try to keep it simple, this law classified games into three categories, type A, B, and C. The electronic gaming devices are type B. Type A includes pinball and other type things, and all you can win with a typical pinball game is a replay. You can't win any money or prizes off it. They even classify, I think, type C, which is the clock, which comes in there and picks up the stuff. Type B is the kind that we're concerned about, and that's the kind that are on a computer or some sort of machine. It's programmed for people to play, not simulated gambling, but a form of skill, like the city attorney said, a game of skill.
and what would that be? So I would like to understand what
What it
games
means
of
is,
skill or electronically that you could play.
my understanding is what it means is there's no chance involved. Each game has a certain small percentage of winning. And if you play the game enough, you can essentially figure out how to crack the code and win the game. What these, by state law, what these machines can't do is be random. It can't be like luck of the draw. It has to be something that's programmed and doesn't change. So by trial and error or by some other way, like the dealers that count the cards or whatever, they have the memory. By trial and error or by other means, the players can essentially figure out how to crack the code.
If the statute says that amusement game means a game or machine operated only for the bona fide entertainment of the general public, which a person activates by inserting or using currency or a coin, card, coupon, slug, token, or similar device, and by the application of skill with no material element of chance inherent in the game or machine. The person playing or operating the game or machine controls the outcome of the game. The term does not include any game or machine that uses mechanical slot reels, video depictions of slot machine reels or symbols, or video simulations or video representations of any other casino game, including but not limited to any banked or banking card game, poker, bingo, pull tab, lotto, roulette, or craps. It does also not include a game in which the player does not control the outcome of the game through skill, or a game where the outcome is determined by factors that are not visible, known, or predictable to the player. It does not include a video poker game or any other game or machine that may be construed as a gambling device under the laws of this state.
So, one question would be, if the game was like a Pac-Man, you reach certain levels or different things of that nature, which requires you to have some level of skill when you're playing the game, that would be considered one of those type games. And you win, so...
That's not what it is.
No, I'm just saying it's just you're reaching a certain level of as you continue whatever phase that you're in of the game.
And it's predetermined by the ticket number.
Oh, there's no chance then. If it's predetermined.
Correct.
If it's predetermined, then, I mean, that's not a game of skill.
Correct.
Well, y'all need to,
Well,
y'all need
then,
to bring your card up here and give it to her so the man can call in and get
I'm filling
it.
one out because.
Okay, so y'all come and explain to us what it is.
well, from that respect, sound like sound like from a legal standpoint, it's not a legal game as it relates to the statute. Is that correct? Or?
Games that don't fit this category are not legal games, you're right. So, now, I'm not trying to speak to what's actually out there in
Right,
the
right,
establishments.
right.
I've never been in one of them, so I'm not trying to say what's here or not here. What I'm saying is the statute says that only these kinds of games are legal. So if it's a game with a predetermined outcome, a game of chance or something like that that doesn't depend on the skill of the player, it's not allowed under this statute.
That's
The
not
example,
what you say in your letter.
Hold on.
the example you gave was right. You said like Pac-Man, which is a skill game, if it's played, you know, in the truest form,
Right.
where you have the, you know, where you're actually trying to
Reach your level.
manipulate the little cursors and stuff like that.
Right.
That's what the statute contemplates. And I don't know, I'll not address comments from the audience unless somebody comes up and speaks, actually.
So I don't have a problem. Anybody speaking, just fill out your speaker card and just don't yell out. Just don't yell out. Summit session, you want to go up? State your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Lakeisha Session, 2300 Rochester Street, apartment C116, Palatka, Florida. Okay, my question, comment is, in your definition of, it can't be a game of chance, it can't, if it's a video depiction of cards and all of this, it's not a legal game.
Right.
So, my question is, if it's predetermined by flat number, okay, all right, well, let's start over. All right, there are several different machines in the electronic, whatever we're calling them now, establishments,
Mhm.
all right?
Okay.
They're what are called stand-up cash machines.
I don't know. If it's
No,
not
no.
a stand-up cash machine, I'd be highly skeptical that it's allowed by this.
No, what I'm saying is, I mean, all right, my question is, who's ever been in one? Like, to know, because by what you've read, you just basically said the games are illegal because they're a video depiction of cards, this and that.
Yes, ma'am. But it's not me saying it, you understand? I mean,
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, by
reading directly
definition
from, yeah,
of what
exactly.
was read,
Right.
no matter how you do it, when you read that definition, it says made all of them illegal.
I don't disagree with you. The statute and our ordinance track each other, meaning they're the same in that regard in terms of defining what is or isn't allowed. And I've even highlighted this language that states, by the application of skill with no material element of chance inherent in the game or machine, the person playing or operating the game or machine controls the outcome of the game. That's what it says.
Okay, so I guess my question would be, which you may or may not be able to answer, is if that's the statute, how are the games, organizations, businesses able to put these in? Because by definition, from the beginning, they were illegal.
Well, that may be an issue of enforcement. And I will tell you this, and I'm just going to tell you that we had a zoning matter that came before the zoning board some months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, and the attorney who apparently is known in the state of Florida for representing electronic gaming establishments appeared on behalf of the applicant from, I don't remember if he was from Hialeah or Lauderdale, but after the meeting, he advised me, one-on-one, we were talking in the back, and he was talking about this particular application, and he said, I think that if you end up enforcing the law, that you're going to find that none of the places that you have open right now in Palatka qualify. Now, I can't tell you he was right, but what I can tell you is he was the attorney representing the industry, and he said that he had looked in a couple other places here in Palatka and that he didn't think they were complying with the law. And I think that's kind of part of the reason we're having this workshop is to make sure everybody understands what the law is.
I mean,
Hold on one second.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, folks in the audience, before we get off on the wrong foot, you know, the workshop is established so we can have the open dialogue. We don't have the ability to change what the Florida statute says, okay? We don't have the authority to do that while we sit here today. That is beyond our scope, okay? So all we want to do is make sure that all of you folks, before you get into the practice of this within the city limits of Palatka, understand what the state statute is, okay? Our role and responsibility is to enforce the statutes that's handed down to us in our city ordinances. We don't have a discussion or a choice on that, okay? So we want to make sure that you find folks that are here tonight thinking about opening business or are currently in business, understand what the situation is. The situation is there's been a change in the Florida statute, and we're responsible and required to enforce that state statute within the city limits of Palatka. I mean, it's not us against you. We have a particular role that we have to play at this point, and you folks as business owners also have a role to play, which means you need to stay in compliance with state statute, okay? And our role is to try to educate everybody that's here tonight on what the state statute is, what you're required to follow, and understand that, you know, we have to enforce that. So it's not adversarial, it's more of an educational purpose.
well, I mean, I understand that, and but I guess my question would be, question/comment now would be, you've allowed, what, about 7 businesses in the city limits to open. These people have invested money and employees into their business, you know. It has brought income to the city of Palatka, but by statute, it should have never been allowed to be open.
No, that's not really accurate.
Okay, no, I mean,
We assume that if you open an electronic gaming establishment, that you're going to operate it legally. It would be the same as you opening a bar and then selling alcohol, you know, you having a beer and wine license and selling hard liquor without a license. When you apply for the zoning or the business license, we assume that you're going to obey the law. If you don't, then, well, I mean, that's not something that we have intentionally condoned or allowed. The assumption that we make is if you open an electronic gaming establishment, that you're going to operate in accord with our ordinance and our code.
So that everybody's clear, there's multiple purposes for the workshop today. I think the first purpose of the workshop, when I look at it, is one, so that everybody knows what the Florida statute says, first and foremost. Secondly, everybody understands what the ordinance says. Then we understand what the perception is from law enforcement. But the third thing is that we understand, one, how the businesses operate internally, because there hasn't been a determination that any business is operating illegally, because there hasn't been an inspection of any businesses to that standpoint. So before everybody kind of gets up in feathers, what he's giving you is just what the law says. Now, what the next phase of that becomes when you start to have conversation or dialogue is to make sure that everybody's in compliance and that there are no issues because nobody's been educated on what goes on. I think one of the major things is most people sitting up here probably haven't been in an establishment. So the knowledge base comes strictly from the statute and from what goes on from a staff perspective. But by having open dialogue about how the business operates, what type of games are in place, what goes on, and even from the standpoint of how the distribution of cash takes place or doesn't take place, and you may want to limit some of that conversation, but at least give the understanding, I guess, from the proprietors as to whether you believe you have the ability to do so within the confines of the law or whatever, or however that goes. Because a lot of times people don't necessarily understand all the parameters of what's written down legally, and different places may choose to turn a blind eye to what the statute is. But if everybody's operating within the confines of the law, it's fine. The one thing we look at, and another reason for this workshop, is to sit down and talk about hours of operation. Since we've extended those hours back for those couple of hours from where they were, there haven't been any problems. Those are all things that are out there. Our thing is, let's figure out what works, what doesn't work, so that everybody can kind of be on the same sheet of music. And if it's some things that aren't working the way they're supposed to, then let's try to find a quick fix for it. And if we can do that, then I can promise you that Chief or Mr. Crow or Mr. Holmes or anybody else, we want to do as little as possible to deal with the businesses. The business doesn't become an issue for us unless there becomes known illegal activity or some type of or some type of health safety issue that comes about, whether it's calls of service or whatever. Other than that, we're not in the business of trying to shut anybody down. I want that to be clear. We don't want to shut you down. We want you to prosper and hire as many people as you can, but we just want to make sure that everything's done the way it's supposed to be done. And educate us, we can educate you, we can have that dialogue, and we can make this thing work. But I don't want it to be a situation where people say, oh, the city called us in here so they can shut us down. That's not it. The city called you in here so that, we can all increase our knowledge base on the law, the interpretations of the law, what's considered, what categories are considered to be what type of games. We're specifically talking Category B games, and how those games are applied on the daily operation of the business, just to make sure that if it's something that needs to be tweaked, let's tweak it. And so that you can operate, that there's no issue, and everything runs. That's what it's all about. It's not a witch hunt, trust me.
No, I understand that, but.
I'm not pointing that to you, but that's just from a perception standpoint.
Yeah, I'm not taking it personal. But what I'm saying is, I've looked at the paper you guys had before, you put the stand on it for the 60 days, 90 days, but a lot of that verbiage, you don't understand. I mean, I'm not
Who doesn't understand?
myself and people I've talked to that have worked in the internet gaming.
Yeah, in the industry.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the one part we can't tweak is the state statute.
Yeah.
And so I guess I do want to make sure I emphasize that it isn't that we, the city, that they, the city, the commission, has passed a rule that restricts what a game, what an allowable game is beyond what the state statute says. The city's definition of an allowable game is exactly the same as the one that the state has. It's no more restrictive at all. So the one part we can't tweak is we can't change what the state says is legal. That, we just don't have the ability to do that.
So let's do this. So Mr. Holmes has given the statute. He's read the statute to you. Mr. Crow, do you have anything else to add based on, did you have a PowerPoint or something? And then from there, if somebody in the audience wants to give a quick educational a tutorial on how they perceive the statute and how they perceive things work for everyone who hasn't been in one, because I think when you take a tour of a facility, when you actually go into the facility, you see it's different from what you think it's gonna be. But I also think that there has to be, but somebody come up and kind of give an operational overview of how the facilities work, and then we can kind of, and then that'll spark dialogue.
Mr. Mayor, just real quick, for your attention, we have a handout in the back that summarizes the local rules and then the state law, like Mr. Holmes was saying. It also includes a map of allowable locations for new businesses. Now, the other thing I just want to point out is there's 4 existing legal internet cafes in the city, electronic gaming establishments, I should say, that are legal, lawful, and we can continue.
Well, they're legally placed. We don't know how they're operating.
Correct. I mean, they were approved, that business license, they're approved as a business. We don't know if they're operating according to the state law or the local laws, but they are in place. And if they basically meet the operational standards pertaining to no minors, no loitering, some of the signage issues, and also meeting the state laws, so they can continue indefinitely. And they can sell that business to someone else to come along and do the same trade.
You said it's 4?
They're 4, yes.
Okay, Chief, you got anything?
Mayor, Commissioners, from the Palatka Police Department standpoint, we were under the same impression as the commission. We wanted to get educated and help educate the public as far as what we know and what we expect to be able to follow as far as the ordinance and the state laws. We are prepared once everything is set in place to be able to do the inspections of the operations to make sure that they are maintaining state law in our own city ordinances. And we are waiting to see what we get for direction from the commission as far as the hours of operation and the allowable, whether it be alcohol or the snacks and food.
How have the extended hours been working?
So far, we have received, I got from Mr. Thad, Plan Director, in reference to one complaint of one of the organizations on exceeding the hours of operations. We haven't had any issues as far as any crimes or anything in the areas of the businesses since we had our original meeting, and that would be it so far. Again, we were waiting for the direction from the commission as far as the hours to begin doing our inspection and our enforcement.
Ms. Carson just stepped out. Okay. All right. Who wants to come up and give us an overview of how the business works? And I won't call for a volunteer. and just kind of give an overview of how it works. You gonna do that? I see one person who might be able to do it. She's smiling. So, Ms. Session, give your name and address for me so I have that for the record.
Marion Session, 607 Madison Street, Palatka, Florida, 32177. I work at Gold Rush on, that's a shame, I think it's 104 North 19th Street.
Okay.
I don't know a lot about the gaming, but I do know that it's ticketed already from the machines.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that. Basically, you know, the machine is already have, I guess, who wants to do.
What does the ticket do though? I mean, if I walked in there and I wanted you to start me to play, what would you tell me to do?
Ask you for your ID,
Okay.
and I will put you in the computer, and it gives you a ID number.
Okay.
So when you put in your ID number, it already knows, the ticket is already there, like the winning.
So
It already knows whether you're going to win or not.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know how. All I know is already ticketed. That's what I'm saying. I don't know much on how it's actually. I know we input your name, and you know, being the owner who I work for, all he do is tell me it's ticketed. So.
But you gotta play the game. It's kind of like a video game, right?
Yes, it's a video game.
And if you don't play well, you don't win.
That's right. That's
And
true.
what happens when you win? Or what
Yeah,
do you
that's
get?
what
What do you get if you win? Or
You get paid by tickets, and then you turn the tickets in and get cash, or
Yeah.
but you're not supposed to do that.
Well,
You're being honest. When you say you get tickets, you get a ticket, right? Or, because when you, the question that I'm understanding that you're asking is, if I'm sitting there, I'm playing, and I'm doing good, or I'm doing bad, how is it determined?
My amount, the total winnings,
You pay-
does it give you one ticket with your total amount that you won? Do you pull it, then you go cash it in?
You choose what level you play at.
Yeah.
So if you want to
Yeah.
play for a penny, you play for a penny. If
Yeah.
you want to play for 3 cents, you play for 3 cents. You really have to see it to understand it, first of all. And so,
The less you play, the less your, is it the more you play, the higher the probability is your winnings are, like a lottery?
She probably could explain it better.
We can give him
I
a card.
volunteer.
I'm
Good
sorry.
afternoon, and I apologize for coming late.
State your name for record.
I have been in sweepstakes for almost 13 years.
State your name for record.
Oh, my name is Lisa Cedaran. I'm the business owner of One Stop Business Shop on Reed Street, Palatka. I have been in the sweepstakes for about 13 years now, and we still have this problem with the state deciding whether it's legal or illegal. They can't decide what's legal with the sweepstakes and what's not legal. The main thing is predetermined. So your game is predetermined. It's based on the amount you chose to play, like Mayor Hill said, 3 cents, 5 cents, 10 cents. Whatever the amount you decided to play. Then you would see your wins. Your wins goes by points. So $1 going to be 100 points. $10 going to be 1,000 points. Now, the main thing is you don't say cash out, you say redeem. So once you redeem your points, we're going to give you your money. But there is a limit to your money.
Do you give cash when they redeem?
Yes, with the points, because the points are money. The points are money. So you're going to redeem your points. So every point is a penny. All right? Every point is a penny. You have to come with that ticket there, or we get it printed out in our office. So we know exactly which seat. Now, my facility don't have anything to do with internet. I don't have any computers, even though the computers also are predetermined. Or it's called skilled games. Skilled games depends on whatever you see on the board there. You're going to decide what you're going to pick to win. Sometimes you pick and you lose. Sometimes you pick and you have a big bonus. So now with the cash now, that's the only thing we have. You have a limit. You're going to pay no more than $599 per customer per day, 24 hours.
So
If
if
you
I,
do-
if I have 5,900 points, how much money do I get from you?
$59.
And I get cash?
Yes, because that's your points. We get your ticket and we redeem it.
So what's your understanding on the limit of cash that you can distribute in a day?
$599. Anything over $600, you're gonna have to fill out that form, that 1099 form, your tax. Especially if your business is registered. So if you have a legal business, a registered business, then we're gonna have to file taxes on you.
Can I
based
ask
on
you a
your wins.
question?
Mhm.
And I appreciate your candor, okay? I think you're being candid with us. Do you have like an attorney, and I don't mean necessarily you per se, but I mean, does like your association or the group that you may be affiliated with or something, do you have an attorney that's
We
giving
do
you?
in North Carolina, and
Does
I
that-
have an attorney over here.
Is that attorney working in any way to give you advice about whether your operation is lawful?
Like I said, he looked at it, and just like all other states, you know, this has been a battle for years, whether it's legal or illegal. So it's really been a tough thing because, you know, a lot of times they would come and they would shut you down at the last day of June or the last day in December. and then people will go back and reopen within 2 or 3 weeks, then they're gonna give you a chance to stay. Well, we tell ourselves it's a chance. So you're gonna be there maybe for a year, 2 years before they will come and shut you down again.
See, what you're describing is and I'm not trying to stir anything in any direction, but you specifically stated that you apparently are operating in violation of the state statute.
No.
Did you hear me read that you can't get cash as a prize?
She went.
She went in.
Oh, you weren't here then? I'm sorry.
So this is I guess the question, did you see in like any ethical opinions or were there any things based on, were there any legal precedents that created something different than what's in the statute?
Not that I saw. Now, there's nothing here, as you know, a lot of times your case interpretations come from challenges that maybe are based on ambiguities in the law or provisions that aren't clear, or it could be based upon an allegation of unconstitutionality or something like that. Quite frankly, in looking at this, I didn't even see any cases that have been ruled upon specifically interpreting the statute, because the statute is so clear. Now, could it be unconstitutional? That's up to a judge to decide, but it specifically states that you can't have cash or a cash equivalent as a prize or a gift card or a gift certificate. So, just by saying I'm giving out cash, you're specifically saying that you're not operating in compliance with the plain meaning of this statute. And that's why I asked if you had an attorney who might have looked at the statute and told you why he or she thought that you operated under some exception to the statute. That's why I was asking you whether or not your attorney said, yeah, I see it says you can't give out cash as a prize, but I think you can get around that because X, Y, or Z. And that's why I asked the question.
Right, the exception are the points.
And I guess the one part that I looked at and I have some question with is that the $5.25 per play.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know from an interpretation standpoint how that goes into each, because I guess each turn, how you determine what's per play, looking at it from a max value, does that give you, and I guess the question, does that give you the ability to individually per play put in, that value or whatever, or some redeemable value based upon that amount?
Yes.
And so, even though you get a ticket to redeem, the ticket includes multiple plays. It includes multiple plays, and so, but then you have a cap, and your cap kind of is based on your cap is based on this number. The $5.99 is close to the $5.25, but I'm just trying to figure out
The part that really, I guess maybe you could quibble about what constitutes a play, although when I was reading this thing, it was pretty clear to say that from the first time you put a coin in, that machine activates until that play is over with. Even if you have replays or you get additional games, that's considered one play. And right now, the maximum value you could give for is $5.25. But the problem that I have is it states specifically merchandise means non-cash prizes maintained on the premises by the operator. And then it specifically states in the statute the term does not include a cash equivalent, a gift card, or a certificate. So I don't know. That's why I asked if you had talked to an attorney about this and your attorney had told you why he or she thought that was not a problem for you. Because if you came to me off of what I know right now and I wasn't involved with the city and you said, this is what I'm doing, what do you think? I'd say, I don't know how you're going to get around the statute that says that you can't give out a cash prize or a cash equivalent. You can't allow it to be redeemed. You can't allow it to be traded. You can't give them a token that they then give you back and you buy back for money. The statute basically says you can't do any of that, as I read it. Now, if there's some expert on the point, but I will tell you that I have to take a lot of my I guess, guidance from the gentleman who was here, and I made a memo that day, and I've got it in my office, who's basically he's making his living off of representing your industry in the state. And he was advocating for someone in this. Did you bring him here? Were you the one that brought him here? I forgot. But he told me that you couldn't use cash, and he told me that he thought that most of the places that we had in Putnam County were not operating in accord with the statute. So he didn't seem to know of a way to circumvent that prohibition. But I'd be interested in talking to your attorney because we're just interested in doing
What's right?
what's right. Yeah. So if you've got an attorney and they've got a wrinkle that I haven't seen, I'd be more than tickled to
I'll be
talk
more
to
than
him.
I'll be more than happy to talk to him and let
Great.
him come and talk
Great.
to you.
Fantastic.
Because,
And I do appreciate your candor, by the way. I mean, appreciate you coming up here and talking to us about what's going on.
Thank you. But the point is, it's like when I was here the last time, I said, okay, I did everything to abide by the law. Over here, try to get my permit, whatever. And then open, okay? So again, like I said, we use the points. Points is redeemable. You use the word redeem, not cash, and that's how we did it. Everybody else doing it the same way. Now, some people would tell you, and they would display toys and display this and display that as gifts and tell you, okay, this is what we have and this is what we're going to give out. But really and truly, you go around there, it's not that. It's not that. So it is difficult for everybody to go along and abide by the law and do what is right. And then you have other people doing something else.
That's what I meant when I said I appreciate your candor. You didn't tell us I'm giving away a stuffed dog or
No.
something. You said I'm redeeming for cash, and that's what I meant when I said I appreciate you being honest with us.
Yeah. Well, I don't agree with this. But do you have any other questions?
So, since the hours have been extended,
Yes.
how are things going?
Very good.
Does that help?
It did. What I do is by 2 a.m. I turn off my lights. So nobody comes in. Whoever there, I would give them like 30 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, it all depends. And then let them go. But my doors are closed by 2 a.m.
And no issues with food or any other stuff?
We hardly do food because of the fact, it was told, do not give people food or drinks, but we give them drinks.
Well,
No
we
food.
actually changed that. We adjusted that.
Right.
We adjusted that night. And
Okay, so you see. But we give them the drinks.
Right. So yeah, that was adjusted along with the hours, just to see how things work, so we could come back and kind of and the workshop was an opportunity for us to get an update on how the hours were working, and everything else. And so, but I definitely appreciate your understanding. I appreciate you coming forward and your candor as well, and at least giving some insight. I know, Ms. Carson, you also filled out a card. You want to come up?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something? You on Reed Street by
Yes.
that church?
Yes, ma'am.
Kind of maybe talk to some of the folks at the church. Somebody approached me and said something about either clean up around your business or around the church, what was left. And if you talk to them, you might get to work with her better, because usually if you're going to serve alcohol, you have to be 300 feet. That's a law.
We
They
don't
don't
serve
serve
any
alcohol.
alcohol.
I know, but I'm saying,
Right.
some people may be dropping stuff out there. You might need to just check the church.
I have somebody clean there every morning when we open, because it's risky to have somebody 3 in the morning trying to clean up. So when I open 10, they come and they clean. Now, sometimes trash will be blowing from elsewhere.
Okay, but I just wanted to
Right.
tell you, they had approached me
Yeah.
about it, and I didn't know who it belonged to, but I said I would mention it to you, and you might
Sure.
need to tell them that you are doing cleanup.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Carson?
My name is Lana Carson. I live at 108 Easterly Road in Satsuma, Florida. I would like to know, I've been in my store for 6.5 years. How does this pertain to me, being that I am sandwiched in between ABC Liquor, Dean Still, and Christian Service Center right behind me?
How does what pertain to you?
He's saying that I can't be within so many feet of a church or a,
You're already in business.
yes, I've been there
So-
6.5 years.
So it doesn't, you're already locked in.
So
You
I'm
were-
exempt from
You're
that?
in the
You're exempt from
non-conforming.
that, yeah.
Okay,
So,
well,
you know, it's not that you're grandfathered in because you existed prior to any zoning restrictions.
If she lawfully existed, did she lawfully exist, Thad?
Yes,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
they still have to meet the operational standards.
Understood,
Okay.
but the mayor's right. If she was lawfully in existence,
Right.
there's zoning and so forth, then you can't be made to move.
okay, but my operating hours are from 9 AM till 11 PM, so that means I'd have to start opening now at 10.
Yeah, I thought, whatever.
I have a lot of customers that work at Georgia Pacific and Seminole Electric.
10 to 10.
Right.
So,
Correct. But I have a lot of customers that work at Georgia Pacific, Seminole Electric that do the swing shift, and they like to come in early. So, I mean, with me opening at 9, what's 1 hour? I mean, and if I don't open till 10, I work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. If I don't open till 10, you're cutting $55 out of my paycheck.
got $55 out of your paycheck.
Yeah, that's 5 hours, 1 hour every day. I get $11.50 an hour. So you're cutting my pay. Is that fair?
The hours were voted on by the commission, and so that was the zoning restriction. The hours were shorter than that,
Mm.
and so the hours were extended. Everyone that came to the meeting at that time were okay with those hours. That's how that came about.
10 to 10 Monday through Thursday and 10 to 12 midnight on Friday through Sunday, correct that?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
It was 10 to 12. Say it's going to start 10 to 12, Monday through Thursday, and it was from 10
To
to
2
2
a.m.
on Friday, on the weekends. That's what was said in the last meeting.
That's not what our code says, right?
Yeah.
No, but
I
that
mean,
was,
it said it was going to be bar hours, that's what was
that was
stated.
in
Yes.
We did it for 60, we did it for 5 years.
for 60 days.
Yeah, we did.
It's gonna have to be changed in the code.
So we got to change it because, I mean, we got to look at changing it. It was a 60-day, it was just for a 60-day period. We got to go back and look at amending
Yeah,
it
that's what you said.
completely based on the fact that, I mean, what I'm hearing is there were no problems. And so that's going to be kind of the conversation that comes out of that. But based on the code itself, it's that 10 to 10. The moratorium extended those hours to 12 and then to 2 a.m. And one reason it was done that way was to see if there would be any issues and how it would affect, how it would affect calls of service and things of that nature.
You know when
How many
some-
days, when's our 60-day period up? It's ended,
So it is.
so we can address it tonight if we want to, by,
Mayor.
during our regular meeting.
So it's ended in January.
January, you extended it 60 days in January.
What was the date in January?
January 12th, here's the minute.
So it extends to March 12th, or thereabout. So it's coming, it's about, January 12th is when we extended it, so March 12th will be what it is. Any other comments, questions? Come on up. Have you fill a card out for me later?
My name is Mildred Brockett, I'm 114 East Palmetto Street, Palatka, Florida, 32177. I just have a question to know, is the laws the same with the bingo as it is with the internet?
It's different because it's not electronic gaming.
Bingo is exempt by state statute.
Yeah, so it's,
They got a better lobby than you guys got.
I don't own one, I just want to know the question. Okay, thank you.
and so it's all based on that whole concept of the electronic gaming and that whole, and it's an industry standard.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Anything from the commission? So in a nutshell, I think today's meeting's been somewhat helpful. It's allowed us to look at the modifications that were put in place in January to see that they're working, so that there can be some action taken on that before the 12th of March, hopefully, to kind of deal with that particular issue. I think the other side of it is it creates an opportunity for all of us to go back and educate ourselves on the statute and to really look at what's the black letter of the law, if there are any cases that provide any exemptions, to go back, get with your counsel, and let's find a way to resolve the outstanding issues so that no one puts themselves in the situation where there isn't compliance with the law. That's the first step. Come on. Come on, stop me. I got about 3 minutes, so.
I just have one question. Okay, we in the city, the casinos is in the county. They're operating doing the exact same things. I'm just asking, is it legal for, so you saying if you go in the county, you can do it? I mean, I'm just asking.
What I'm saying is that if the city doesn't enforce right-hand turns on red, and it's illegal for you to not stop and use prudent care to make a right turn on red throughout the entire state of Florida, we can't say what the county's not doing. The county, if the county chooses to enforce the law differently than the city, then that's an issue for the county. But if the state law says to do it this way, then we're bound by the state law. But there are situations that we won't talk about, but there are times when you find the level of enforcement different.
Okay, that's
And
what
so,
I'm asking.
but sometimes the county has ordinances that the city doesn't have in the same way. But interpretation of state statute needs to be the same uniformly all throughout the entire state, not just for the county and city. And so there are some things that are different. When you look at our ordinance and where we restrict the zoning, that's different from what the county does. But the county does because the county hasn't said that they're going to restrict zone at all. You can put them wherever you got an opportunity to put a commercial space. And so those are differences. But what we're trying to do is make sure we give our merchants an opportunity to maximize their revenue, minimize any type of opportunity for crime or any problems to exist, and to make sure that we're also good community partners. And so, but we also want to make sure that we protect you and inform you as to what the law is, so that there is no situation where somebody is saying we didn't know. So we all know, we can all educate ourselves on this industry so that, it's a lot easier to say, hey, the statute says this, and, you might want to look at what you're doing and make sure that, that interpretation, that we're all on the same page as far as interpretation, instead of having someone come in and just shut you down. Or to have somebody, or have a state agency come in here and say, hey, that's not what it is, and it's totally different. So we would rather do everything we can to disseminate the information, to have that positive dialogue. One, to make sure that the businesses operate in compliance with the law, but also that our restrictions don't minimize your opportunity to make a living and to employ people. And so that's what we want to do. It's not a witch hunt. I think we all can educate ourselves more in the industry as a whole, the patrons, the proprietors, the commission. As a whole, and this is what this is, because again, it's something that we're trying to make sure that we fish out whatever potential problems may be early on in the process so that everything can run smoothly. And that's it. And so it's a good meeting, it's a good conversation, because I think the perception was, hey, the city of Palatka is just trying to shut down the industry. And that's not the case. What we're trying to do is make sure everything is right. And as long as it's running right and within the Florida statutes and within our ordinance, then we're good. And we don't have a problem when we see situations like, when we have situations where we're seeing that the issue of the late hours, not creating additional crime, if we see that doesn't happen, then you see that there's a willingness to say, hey, let's extend the hours to 2 o'clock. We're talking about adults. And then, we just don't want, I can tell you, I don't want to see anybody sitting in front of a game for 24 hours a day. Everybody needs to take a nap at some point. But I just think that overall, what we also, it's your leisure, it's your time. We want to make sure we allow people to do what they want to do without us being, overly intrusive into what's going on. But that we're mindful, that we're all mindful, and that's what we're doing. And we're just trying to make sure that we can all be on the same accord. Anything else from the commission? Is there a motion? Thank you guys for coming in. We'll take a 5-minute break. Yes, sir.